Hi everyone! Today I'm going to talk about a few different short stories that we had to read for the DOE course. And besides talking about these stories, I'm going and analyzing them. I'm going to give a brief description or summary about the stories in general. Okay, so the first story is called A Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury. Basically, the story is about time travel. We have these hunters who want to go to the past and kill some T-Rexes. But by going to the past, in this situation in specific, some things end up happening, and as a consequence, we have some repercussions in the future. That's like an overall description of the story. The first thing that I want to talk about here in this story is the concept of the butterfly effect, which is basically small variations or small changes in present that can lead to either positive or negative repercussions or consequences in the future. And we can basically see this in the story when the main character steps on a butterfly by mistake, not intentionally. He ended up changing the future when going back to his present time. And by doing that, he sort of altered the course of nature and the course of life in general, and they ended up electing a different president, not the one that he wanted, and also having a different spelling system, which was very odd for me to read, but very interesting, and had this speck of humor in a way. I found it really interesting, and I think we can relate that to real life, not in the same way because we cannot go to the past, or maybe in the future we can because of how technology develops and stuff, but in the sense of when we are faced with two options, both options can lead to different consequences, either positive or negative. And us, by making that decision, can alter the course of our lives, the course of other people's lives. So it's quite similar if you look at it in that perspective. And also, a brief thing that I want to talk about here is how people in the story are portrayed. In the story regarding people, we have sort of two different behaviors in a way. We have the people who want to save the environment in a way to preserve nature, to preserve the course of nature, and not altering it. But also we have these other people, which is basically the main character, who doesn't really care that much and sort of wants to fix things with money because he is quite wealthy. And we can also see that here in our real society, that people with a lot of money sort of think that they are entitled to do and say whatever they want to say, and to fix everything with money. So that's basically a no-no. Okay, the next story that I want to talk about is called The Ones Who Walk Away from Melas. The story is basically about people living in a utopian society, a perfect society, but this situation only happens because of the suffering of a child that is held captive in a cell or a room. I don't remember correctly, but basically their happiness, people's happiness, depends on the suffering and the torturing of a child. And here we also come across with decision making. We have the people who sort of accept and are okay in a way with this situation and end up living their lives and feeling happy and whatever, quite individualistic and egotistic, I have to say. And we also have the other people who cannot bear living in that society, and having this child suffering in those conditions. And again, here we can see that whatever decision you make has repercussions in the future. Because, for example, if you choose to walk away from that place, you don't know where you're going to. You don't know if you're going to a better place. You don't know if you are going to be okay in that place. It's quite interesting to see. We don't know the ending in that sense, we don't know what happens to the people who walk away, which is quite interesting and very intriguing for me, at least. And we also have this idea of happiness. Here, happiness comes from the willingness of the people to sacrifice one human being and to benefit themselves. That's basically it. Okay, so here we have this child who is suffering. Oh, poor thing, but let's move on with our lives. That's basically here what happens. And also we can see some relation with this child sort of represents the under or the working class who supports the upper class with unpaid labor, right? So it sort of represents, without them, without the lower class or the middle class, the rich class cannot survive, right? And this is basically the story itself. Like, without the child suffering and living in those conditions, the people who are in this utopian society cannot be. And last but not least, we have the lottery. The lottery is basically about traditions. We have a few families, right? Around 300 people, 3,000 people, I'm not sure. But basically in this society, these families, these people celebrate tradition. What's the tradition? The lottery. What's the lottery about? Well, basically, one member of each family has to pick a piece of paper. If the piece of paper contains a black dot, then you are chosen in a way. And then it moves on to the second stage, which is picking another piece of paper, but within the family, right? So, and whoever gets the piece of paper with the black dot wins the lottery. What's the winning prize? Stoning. So basically, here is the story about sacrificing people, one individual per year, so we can celebrate our traditions, right? Because it's something that we do in real life. I found this story horrible. I mean, not horrible, it's a very, very interesting story to read. But the main point, the main idea of the story, like killing people because it's just tradition, was horrible. I didn't like it. Here, basically, we can talk about our society, how society is willing to continue with the traditions and the celebrations that we have done for the past many years. And the sad part of this is that these people don't really pay attention to the celebrations that they are doing, that they are celebrating. I mean, here we are celebrating the death of someone, and this someone is sort of a scapegoat. This person sort of embodies all the evil and the bad things about society, and okay, so we're going to stone this person to death so that we can have a new renewal of our new society and start over, right? So that's basically, I think, their mindset in a way. Okay, with killing this person, we're going to get rid of all the bad things that we have done in the past year, and we're going to start over. And they consider it as a sacrifice, something positive maybe for them, but not really. Another thing that I want to say here is how people saw this tradition as a good thing, and they considered changing it or getting rid of this tradition as something uncivilized in a way and not modern like, right? Because they were so proud of their traditions, and they consider other societies who had gotten rid of those traditions as uncivilized societies. And you can also see, by first reading the story, you sort of create this image of these people as civilized and gentle, and okay, they're celebrating something, what can it be? But then you realize that they are not really civilized or gentle, that they are quite violent and not good people, because they are willing to sacrifice someone just because it's a tradition, right? And last but not least, I want to say something. I found that, I mean, in the story, a woman ends up being randomly selected, to be stoned to death. I think we can characterize this whole situation as to what happens with women. We have this society, this group of people who sort of embody the patriarchal society in which we live in, and this society stoning and committing violence against this woman, okay? Which is basically an everyday situation for us women. I really enjoyed reading these stories. They were very interesting and entertaining in a way, even though they had sort of sad endings. They were very interesting and I really liked them. They were sort of all connected in a way, and I hope that the next short stories that we have to read, I hope that they are sort of different in a way compared to these ones. But that's basically it. I really look forward to reading those other stories. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you for listening and bye.